Hello again, YouTube. Jake here, and welcome back to Reading Too Much Into Things. Well, another Halloween has come and gone. The spirits have withdrawn to their tombs. Elder horrors were prevented from rising once more. And while running supplies to my friends over at Sugarpunch Design Works during their zombie trouble, my mind wandered to one of my first experiences with anime: giant robots. Giant robots have become as symbolic of Japanese culture as the samurai, if you ask me, and one of the most iconic giant robot franchises is easily Mobile Suit Gundam. I could spend days going over what I know and what we can learn from this long-running examination of war, history, culture, racism, and the origin of conflicts. But today, I want to focus on one series specifically, because I feel it gets slammed for being a bit too of its time. Let's talk about Gundam Wing. Now, if you're tired of hearing about giant robots, Gundams, Japanese culture, or haven't seen Gundam Wing and don't want it spoiled, just leave a comment down below and go about your day. Don't worry, we'll wait. Originally airing from April 1995 to March of 96 in Japan and beginning airing March of 2000 in the US, Gundam Wing was the first Gundam series most fans in the state were introduced to as part of the then new anime block on Cartoon Network, Toonami. And as the first Gundam we saw, we all thought it was awesome! And why shouldn't have we? It was our first real taste of not superhero or not Power Rangers like giant robots. The mech designs looked cool from where we sat, and holy crap did people ever blow up! But that has led, in my view, to missing bigger points that make Gundam Wing an actually good series rather than simply a cool one. And as cool as the designs were, when you stop and think about the story, they fit better in something like G Gundam, the series that came before it. What I want to focus on in this video is less of how 90s the series was, and more how, of the 90s, its writing is. Allow me to clarify. After the end of the Cold War, there's a rather complex theory about what was to come afterwards that was simplified by the general populace into that the normal ideas and concept of how war happens, thus wars themselves, is now a thing of the past. The idea of two or more major ideals of what political structure would spread across the world fighting over resources and proxy countries was to die out, and thus there would be no more major conflicts like that. Why bring this up when talking about Gundam? Because that's what so much of Gundam's history was about. Two warring ideas, normally Earth versus the colonies, of how mankind will expand or grow from their point in history. Clashing against each other, and a look at the victims caught in the middle. Normally young teenagers from one or another side losing loved ones, their innocence, and any future not stained in conflict in the blood of those killed in order to stay alive. Wing, however, tried to be different. Mind not as different as G Gundam by turning it into a different genre altogether, but they tried to make Gundam Wing a true Gundam story set in a 90s style post-war future, I feel. Let's look at some exacts of the show so we can better see what I'm getting at. First off, as you might have guessed, there isn't really a second nation or ideal in this conflict. There's the Earth and its various branches, and those protesting against it, but that's about it. Near the end of the series, there does end up being a militarized anti-Earth movement, but for the majority, it's all just one giant group. Granted, once you get inside looking at the Earth government in place, there's subgroups arguing about how to approach the one idea of how their nation should be run, but that's the thing, it's one ideal. Then there's our heroes. Normally in Gundam series, it's a prodigy, a young talented boy with a knack for mechanics whose first time in the mobile suit, they're more or less instantly an ace. In Wing, yes, they're youngsters, and yes, they're piloting aces, but... yeah, lack of a better term, they're terrorists. Highly trained, military-grade operatives sent out as a single-person strike force to use as a violent revolt and protest against the current in-power government's treatment of a portion of its population, i.e. in this case, the colonies. And then there's the villains. While Zex Marquis / Miliardo Peacecraft is your standard hard cynic that mirrors or inverts the hero's attitudes, wearing a mask to hide who he is for the sake of revenge, and his arc going from original Gundam Char to counter-attack Char within Wing isn't much to note, there is one villain I want to draw a lot more attention to. Treize Khushrenada. God damn, is this a villain? Smooth, charming, powerful, in control even when he answers to others. Treize Khushrenada is the leader of the main antagonist group, Oz, who are generally speaking terrible. What with the assassinations, oppression of the colonies, and overthrowing the established Earth government, which it was a part of. Just bad times. But even Treize has someone he answers to, as the Oz group is simply the military arm of another group, the Rummefeller Foundation. And we're nearly to an important part about Treize I want to bring up. After using Oz to overthrow the established Earth government in Gundam Wing and replace it with one the Rummefeller Foundation controlled, they started to focus on the creation of a new style of mobile suit, namely unmanned suits meant to cut out the cost of training pilots, the mobile doll units. This was the last line for Treize, and thankfully for him, he had far too much support and charisma to be straight up assassinated for going against those who controlled Oz. And why was Treize? Why would he be against the mobile doll units, which would mean no one would have to die during combat? Well, that's just the thing. If it was all mobile dolls, when a war broke out, no one would die. That's it, for the most part. That's Treize's problem with it. Not because he's a bloodthirsty monster obsessed with death and the glory of carnage. He expressed his views against it in the show, and he refuses the use of mobile dolls as it takes away the horrors of war, making it too easy to just up and go war because nothing would be lost at the end of the day. Putting aside the well before its time anti-drone warfare message in this, I feel there is. Does this remind you of anything?
When the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
To clear up any confusion, Mobile Suit Gundam and Gundam Wing first started airing in Japan in '95 and in the US in 2000. I stated this at the beginning of the video. Metal Gear Solid 1 came out in 1998, with Metal Gear Solid 2 coming out in 2001. I'm not saying Wing is where the line or concept in Guns of the Patriots came from, and even if it did, there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration. I just find it, I don't know, funny I guess, that some people disregard Wing for being simply edgy 90s and not look at the deeper, very post-Cold War examination of military culture in popular media I've only seen here in Wing and in the Metal Gear Solid series. Why? Oh, right, stuff like that. At least that's what I get from it. Thank you for watching. Like this video if it gave you something new to think about, and feel free to leave a comment below either on this topic, something that this video made you think of, or suggestions for other things I should look at or comment on. I'm Jake, and as always, stay safe.